your gratitude, by people being of service when I first got here and their gratitude shining through. I'm just grateful. I want to thank the group. I want to thank Frankie for inviting me, putting this together. I love service. I'm a big service guy, and it's like, the people that go out of their way and put their neck on the line to be able to make things happen that are special. They usually take the brunt of all the character assassination and the criticism, and I've been serving on our convention committee for the last 15 years, and every year you hear a lot of wonderful things, but you always hear, oh, you guys didn't do this and you didn't do that, and what's about, so there's always, you're never going to please everybody, right? So I want to say thank you for taking that burden upon yourself, man, to make something so wonderful happen. I'm grateful to be here. I was able to cash in some of my points and get on a plane and come. And I just got off the plane. Raymond and I was telling Raymond, it's a miracle that we're both here. And it's been a challenge all the way. I was in Oklahoma at a convention last weekend supporting Raymond, spending time fellowshipping, hanging out with some people. And I had realized in the middle of my trip that I had left my passport in Los Angeles. And that wasn't going to work out too well. And so I did, I'm on the phone, I'm panicking, I'm thinking, okay, I get into the solution, what can you do? It was a Sunday, the banks were closed, post office closed, I was powerless for 24 hours. I couldn't make a phone call, I couldn't get into a real solution until I got answers. But the answer was that I was going to fly home to Los Angeles as opposed to flying out of New York to get here. And that wasn't in the cards. So I called the airline, and because I bought my plane ticket on my points, they were kind enough to be able to switch things around. The airline that I was originally going to take, before I get into the basic sessions, to kind of give you the whole thing of why I think something special is going to happen for me here. You know what I mean? I came over because I want to be part of the retreat and visit my friends, and I love you guys. You guys are always amazing and loving, and it energizes me every time I come to the United Kingdom, and I get over here. But so what happened is they lost my luggage from Oklahoma to Los Angeles. And so after all that, this morning, at 8 o'clock this morning, I didn't have luggage to get here. And so I had to call the airline. They said, well, we'll deliver it to your house, but we're not sure how long it's going to take. I said, well, I'm going to come down there. And by the time I got there, they put it on the delivery package. It just was, it was a lot of, let's see what's going to happen kind of stuff, And I eventually got to the airport with my bags, got on a plane, had my passport, and now I'm here fellowshipping with you, And so, they talk about going to any lengths, man. I tell you, I've been so excited to be here, and to go through all that. I wanted to share something, because since the last time I've been here, the commitment here is, back to basics and the basic text, and it always makes me think of our predecessors. And since the last time I was here, we had a tremendous loss. My great-grand sponsor has since passed away. His story is in our basic text. It is, I have found the only Narcotics Anonymous meeting in the world. His name was Robert Curtis Barrett, otherwise known as Bob B. He died with 53 years clean. All Narcotics Anonymous clean time. He was a soldier and a humble man, and always served and always sat in the front, and for many years, he was kind of like the guy you would see at every world convention that would stand up for the most clean time for Narcotics Anonymous. And he was well into his 80s when he passed away. He started suffering from dementia at the end, and so the fellowship really had to take care of him at the end. And my grand sponsor was being sponsored by him for 25 years. And they had this tremendous ceremony for him, like a memorial service that was beautiful. I was impacted very much by the first time I ever went to a Narcotics Anonymous memorial, because where I came from, addicts that died usually died in active addiction, and the funerals were they were just very, dreary and just sad, because, we die in gas station bathrooms, and we die in hotel rooms with pornography playing on the television, with the thing chained to the wall, cigarette burns on the nightstand, and we die in places like that, and it's not pretty. And so for someone to die clean, to leave a legacy behind, who was instrumental in keeping the basic text, alive and the literature coming to life, I just wanted to honor his life, and I do that by coming here and being in service and showing up when I'm asked to show up, and I just wanted to tell you guys, man, it was an amazing thing. People from all over the world came to say goodbye to Bob B, and I was very proud to be able to be part of something that was so, I don't know how to put into words, but just, a tremendous, going away for a man who did so much for us, when it wasn't popular. There was one meeting in the world when he started going to meetings, and so I'm not, I'm in awe of that. I can only see God's hand through that. I'm in London, England, in a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. When he started going to meetings, there was one meeting in the world. Now we have over 60,000 per week. So that's a pretty phenomenal jump, in a 60-year time span. And so, I wanted to share a little bit. For me, when I first got clean, the first thing my sponsor did, he said to me, I want you, besides some of the basic fundamentals, he said, I want you to read chapter 2, and I want you to read chapter 5 in the basic text. I want you to highlight it, and I want you to give me a page on each, and I want you to give me a summation of your take on that. And so those are the 2 chapters that I go to with every guy that I sponsored in the last 19 years. That's the first thing I say to them, is I hand down to them, or my sponsor handed down to me. So I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've read through chapter 2, what is the Narcotics Anonymous program, and what can I do? Those things have been ingrained in me. The words and the ink have weighed themselves off the pages into my heart. But first they have to come through this thing, right? They say the longest journey you ever travel is from your head to your heart. And that has been certainly the truth for me. I just remember, reading chapter 5, and my sponsor was always, he was always pointing things out to me. He would say to me, like, if you can see here where it refers to clean time, right? Abstinence, it says simple abstinence. They don't accredit much to abstinence, and I said, wow, I would have never paid attention to that. And he said, then it said it again, mere abstinence. And so, although abstinence and being clean is a tremendous, that's what we have to, we can't start without that. A desire to be clean, membership is given to everybody. You can be high right now and be in this room. And that's all that's required, is a desire to stop using. But in order for the steps to take place and to take a hold of my life so that I can make a difference, I need to be clean. I need to be abstinent, And so that's a very good starting point. My friend Melvin C., who used to say that, being clean is not the entire movie, but it's the ticket to get in, So, you have to be clean in order for the process to start, in order to graft a new idea, because I came in here with a closed mind, but somehow desperation and pain and suffering had opened my mind to ask for help. It postured me in a place of humility, where I walked into a little noon meeting in Hollywood, California, and I raised my hand. I got clean in the birthplace of Narcotics Anonymous. There's a tremendous amount of clean time there. I'm forever grateful for the members that have stayed active. They just, they stayed active. They didn't leave. No matter what happened, they were still here. Regardless of whether they're like, as younger members coming in, beating them over the head with the literature, because that's what we did. We beat them up with the literature. Well, it doesn't say that, it doesn't say this, So they loved me where I was at, because I was very, very rigid for a lot of years. I was very arrogant and very self-righteous. And my motive for reading the literature wasn't always one of love. It wasn't always one to improve my spiritual condition. Sometimes it was to come back and, disagree with you and have some weapon, have some ammunition behind me, So I'll be damned if they're going to tell me what to do. And but it doesn't really matter what my motive was. The information still came through. And eventually you guys rubbed up against me, and you softened my heart. And my condition changed as my life unfolded and things took place in recovery. And as I made mistakes and I made decisions. And I grew up in public here. You know, my choices were lived out in front of all of you. They told me a long time ago, you either live out loud or you will die in the silence. And so I've learned to live out loud here, regardless of my choices and what it looked like and how I felt. I've always been active. I've always come to meetings. I always held my commitment, regardless of I made a bad decision or something that was made out of selfishness or self-centeredness. Lustful choices, whatever the circumstance, I've always come. When you guys were talking bad about me, I came. When you guys were, giving me accolades, I showed up. It didn't really matter because I think it's part of the course here that we're a family, and we're gonna be with each other, from here until it's time to go home. And nobody gets out. I hate to bring the bearer of bad news, but nobody gets out alive, right? So, but what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with the time that God has given me here? Do I want to take advantage of the literature and step work and sponsorship and being in fellowship and in prayer, in communication with God? It's one of those things that's, that I found out, I have back to basics. I have some men that I sponsored over the years that have, for whatever reason, have been challenged with making the meeting early and staying a little late. Like the meeting starts at 7, but they'll get there at 7:10, and they always, well, I want to do step work. I always tell them, I don't care how much you read, and I don't care how much you write, and I don't care how many meetings you make, and I don't care how many commitments you haven't surrendered until you get to the meeting early and stay a little late. That's just like a basic fundamental of our fellowship is to come early and stay a little bit late. To come a little early, try to be of service, put your chair away when you're done. Like, that's just simple stuff. And if you can't do that, I tell them, then there's no use in I don't care how much you write. Because you can write all day long. Surrender is an action word. Surrender is something I say that I must do. It has to be displayed in the way that I live my life, in the way that I take, hold of the literature. Do I believe that alcohol is a drug? Then I need to clear my home of all drugs and paraphernalia. Well, if alcohol is a drug, then the alcohol's got to go. I don't want death in my home. And many people might not agree with that, but that's the way that I was kind of raised around here. And I don't, because I don't know about anybody else, but I will minimize stuff. And I won't take in the deadly nature of this disease and understand it. I know the drugs are just a symptom. But if I'm going through an episode and my defects of character are having their way with me, I want to put as much room between me and the drugs as possible. I want to put as much time and space away from my emotions and my reaction from the drugs as possible. There may be a miracle moment where, I see people that they wanted to use, and for whatever reason, the connection didn't answer the phone, or they were in a place where something happened. And they were able to make their sponsor called them, or somebody in the fellowship was checking in on them, or things like that have happened to me, like where I've been in tremendous amount of pain and in depression, and I think that's something that we all have to come across in recovery in life. What I've learned is that we cannot afford to allow depression to turn into despair. Despair is when all hope is gone, and so I have a close, tight-knit of people that love me, that care for me, men that I sponsor. I have a group that I've been a part of, for 19 years, that I go to, faithfully. So if I'm not around, they look for me. They're worried. What are you doing? You okay? What's going on with you? I have things in place, so I protect myself, and I've invested in a lot of people. I love the process of recovery. One of the things that I learned. And what can I do? It says, and I try to encourage people that struggle, right? Because, and I say struggle in this aspect with clean time. Raymond says this often, and it made a lot of sense to me. Sometimes the good things in life are the enemy of the best things. And what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of people make their way out of their responsibility of sponsoring people and being a home group member and being a service, because school is very important, family is very important, the job is very important, but none of those things should be more important than your recovery. None of them should be in front of the responsibility that God puts upon us when He brings us to the program, the power that brought us to the program and that is still with us, right? Nothing should come between that responsibility. And I believe that when it does, I've seen people with a lot of money, with a lot of children, with degrees on the wall, miserable. You know, just making everybody else's life miserable because they're not spiritually conditioned, because they're driven by things and they're not driven by spiritual principles. And, you know, I've had my own experience. So, you know, I try to share with everybody that, you know, I bring them back to the literature. You know, the literature says in chapter 5, what can I do, that the program will not work when we try to adapt it to our life. We must adapt our life to the program. And that means that first and foremost, you know, when I remember I got moved from one job to the other, and they transferred me, and without my permission, by the way. They just said one day I came into work. I was at one job for 16 years. I worked at the same place for 16 years. And I came into work one day, and they said, "You're out," you know, and we're transferring you. So when they transferred me, they changed my schedule. And I had an H&I commitment, and I had some other commitments. And so I said to, you know, I talked to my sponsor about it. And so I talked to my new boss, and I said, "Hey, listen, I can't work on these particular nights. Is it possible? I have things that I need to do on this particular night. And, you know, can you schedule me around that?" See, that was my responsibility to ask him. You know, he could have said no and then okay. But my responsibility is to prioritize Narcotics Anonymous. Prioritize my, you know, put myself in a place where my spiritual condition will come first. Because as long as my spiritual condition is at the forefront of my life, all of the areas will fall into place as they were meant to all along. That's what the literature refers to. You know, if my spiritual condition is first, then God will put me in proximity of people with influence. Doors will open. Things will happen. You know, and I see people running around everywhere trying to make things happen, not knowing that if you take care of this responsibility, step work, sponsorship, home group, prayer and meditation, you know, being a good Narcotics Anonymous member, that somehow things happen in my favor. Like, you know, I'm not saying the road is easy, because I believe that there's only some things you can learn in the dark that you can't learn in the light. There's character building moments in my life, in my recovery. There's things that I have to go through in order to get to that next phase in my recovery. I think this life on life's terms brings a burden upon itself. When relationships end and when friendships are, you know, I've been at odds with my friends. You know, there's things that go on in life where you just have disagreements with people, or you made a bad decision based on selfishness or self-centeredness, and then you're left with these feelings of shame and guilt. What do you do with all that stuff? You know, and you know, I've just stayed very, very close to Narcotics Anonymous. You know, I've never strayed. I've always stayed the path, regardless of what's going on. And my life has improved. It's been improved in all areas. It's improved financially. It's improved spiritually. I'm not such an emotional coward as I used to be. I take ownership of my behavior. If that, you know, that to me, that's big boy. That's a tremendous leap. To take ownership instead of blaming people and things and other, you know, because until I can take ownership of something that I've done or said or whatever the circumstances may be, I can't find help. You know, I can't find help. So I'm honest with. Listen, I have people in my life that I love, you know, that I can trust. You know, sponsorship is a relationship that I hold dear to my heart. My friendship with Raymond, you know, he's like my brother. You know, I trust him with everything. You know, so I don't have, you know, I'm not walking around with this big bag of secrets. You know, I try to get a lot of that stuff off of me. And I do that by, you know, the basics, you know, having a support group, having a home group, sponsorship, and you know, sometimes I even share with the men that I sponsor. You know, I share with them because I want them to understand that their sponsor is just another human being trying to stay clean. You know, I don't want them to put me on. I don't belong anywhere other than on solid ground with them. You know what I mean? And I know that as a member here, I put people places they shouldn't have been. And my expectations of when they've fallen, you know, I'm disappointed, you know, but I think that spiritual maturity, I grow in recovery, and I realized that, we're all the same. Some of us are just better off at hiding it. Some of us, we just deal with it a little bit better. Some of us, aren't as visible or vocal, but we all have the same issues. We all come across the same things. Our defects of character are the things that are going to try to work us into a corner. And so it's my responsibility to be honest with myself and to, stay active, step work, and I love this basic text. We do recover. What Jimmy Kennan wrote in here. Narcotics Anonymous is a 12-step fellowship that is not substance-driven. And I want to read something real quick that Jimmy K wrote, right? And this was written by him in 1965. And it says, however, we knew that many were still going down the road of delusion, degradation, and death because they were unable to identify with the alcoholic in AA. Their identification was at the level of apparent symptoms and not at the deeper level of emotions or feelings where empathy becomes a healing therapy for all addicted people. And so that means that, there's a level of spiritual maturity that we come to share with each other, right? And pain and suffering, because we're talking about the disease of addiction. We're not talking about alcohol, and we're not talking about cocaine, and we're not talking about ecstasy or GHB. We're talking about obsession, we're talking about compulsion, or we're talking about complete and total self-centeredness and self-obsession. I've been clean 19 years. I can still have obsession over something or someone, social media, I share about this all the time. It's a new challenge, It's a new challenge. You got social media in this day and age. I feel bad for the addicts that are getting clean now, because they have to deal with social media. 19 years ago, you had to call your sponsor. The gossip didn't get out that fast. And, if you wanted to stalk your girlfriend, you had to get in the car and go over to her house. Now you can be stalking her right in the meeting, on the spiritual retreat, or, and just be, bananas in your head about this guy, and why is that person saying this, and I've been through it, clean, with ears clean. So, I always make laughter about it because it'll have you wrapped up, man. 3 o'clock in the morning with an obsession and access to the internet, there's bad news, man. There's bad news. So, it's funny, I just recently told my friends, hey, you want freedom? Deactivate your social media account. I told them to deactivate it, I did it one time. I did. I surrendered for a little while, Because they say you go through the pain of withdrawal, right? Or you go back to using. One of the two. So you either suffer the pain of withdrawal or go back to using. But on the lighter side of everything, I've been really good. God has been really good to me. The process of recovery has been amazing. They say if you stay on the basics, you'll never have to go back to the basics. And I think I've been pretty close. My whole recovery has been pretty much grounded. I've had a service position ever since I've been clean, which is one thing that I pride myself on. I didn't make myself available to the fellowship. I serve because I'm very selfish, and I don't want to be. I came in here very self-centered, an only child, selfish. If it's not going to serve me, then why do I need to do it? So I serve, and I try to serve selflessly, and I try to do inconvenient service. Service is easy when it's convenient, but when it's inconvenient, you got to go out of your way, or do something that you're not accustomed to, and you got to walk through some changes, some fear. I found out freedom isn't free, and if you want freedom, you have to be uncomfortable. That means a change of ideas, an attitude, a new behavior, being around people that you're not accustomed to being around, going places in the 11th step that you haven't been accustomed to going to, and experiencing new things and opening your mind and inviting the process of recovery into my heart and allowing God to do what God needs to do through me and for me. But I'm my biggest obstacle, And so what I've been able to do is allow you guys to direct me. Somebody invites me somewhere. My first reaction is like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to see a bunch of people I don't know. Okay, do the opposite. Go somewhere you don't want to go. Be around a bunch of people you don't know. And I always benefited from that. I've always benefited from doing things that I'm not accustomed to doing. It seems like it's always worked out in my benefit, and I just got to fight through it. And, once again, I want to thank you guys for the invitation. It's been an honor to be here. I love Narcotics Anonymous. I love the fellowship, man, and I really love you guys here in the UK, man. You guys have always been wonderful and always been loving to us, and I'll be forever grateful. I take you with me when I travel. I take you in my heart. I share about my experiences here with you guys, and you guys have impacted my life from here to whenever, and I thank you for that. So thank you for letting me share.